So I usually like to start with a Q&A. Are you ready for the Q&A, Seong-Hee? Yes? Okay.
Hopefully.
5 questions, 1 minute. Let's do it. What's your favorite thing about Korean culture?
Um, the food and how it's laid out. Everybody eats at the same time. Everybody eats out of the same bowl, so it's very communal.
Oh, I love that. What was your favorite class ever in school?
Choir. That's where I met a lot of my close girlfriends, and that was my favorite teacher. She was like my second mom in high school. Yeah, high school choir.
Wow. If you could have a friendly dinner with any public figure or celebrity, who would it be and why?
So I thought about this for 24 hours. I'm gonna change it up a little bit. I would love to have lunch with my younger self.
Oh, I love that. Yeah, that's a good one.
So, like a 9-year-old Seong-Hee, I would love to have lunch with her. Yeah,
Would you have a lot to tell her?
I think so. I miss her.
Okay, tell us something about you most people don't know.
Mm, My brother and I shared a birthday, just 3 years apart.
Are you
Exactly on the same day.
serious? Same day?
365 days apart. Yep, he's exactly 3 years older.
Wow, that's pretty crazy.
We're very similar too.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, and lastly, what's your favorite dessert?
Ice cream.
Ice
I would
cream.
have ice cream at any given time. Drop of a hat. Yeah.
Winter, summer, anytime.
It'd be
And
cold.
what's your favorite flavor?
I think anything without a lot of fillings. I like just plain ice cream, but I'll take strawberry. Like strawberry can stay. Those little bits of strawberry, frozen strawberry can stay, but otherwise, usually not a lot of fillings. So Cold Stone's not really my favorite,
Okay.
but yeah.
Okay. That was our little Q&A to get us warmed up. So I'd like to go ahead and do a quick intro of you, Seong-Hee, because you're from Korea, born and grew up partially in Korea, and you're a recent official citizen of the US. So congratulations on that. You are a senior rehabilitation engineer, and you worked very hard to get where you are now. Tell me, outside of all that jazz, who is Seong-Hee? Or how could I say, how would your friends or partner best describe you? Here's the right question.
So other than what my resume may tell you, I think my friends and my closest family members and people around me would say that um I am always doing something. I'm
Okay.
productive, that I'm always going somewhere and in transition. I keep trying to not say the typical words or cliche words like go getter or
Yeah.
hardworking, but I think that I would hope that they would think that I was fun to be around, but I definitely think that they would say I'm very colorful, that I'm not bland. I'm very much very concentrated colors and lots of colors. If I can put a visual to it. So somebody who's can be intense and particular, but hopefully in a good way. So somebody who's always trying to do something new, trying something new, and doing my best to be good at whatever I'm doing at the time.
I love that. So could you say you have a strong personality then, or just a very colorful personality?
I think very strong. Yeah.
Very strong.
I liked it. So, I recently got married, and before I got married and before I got into a really, really serious relationship, I thought I was a really cool chick. I strive to be the very you know what, everything's fine. You could do that. Sure. Whatever, whatever. Everything's cool. I'm a cool
Yeah.
chick. I'm okay with everything. I am
Yeah.
not a cool chick. I am very, very particular, and I'm not picky. If you don't give me any options, then I'm not gonna complain. But if you ask me what I want, I will tell you, the ice cream thing.
Exactly.
Exactly, no fillings. It has to be, this brand. I can tell you to the T. So yeah, definitely. If you let me have what I would like, then I can certainly be particular.
And where do you get that strong determination from, do you think?
Um, I think like the strong determination, like endurance to get things done and do well probably came from my Korean culture and like my family. We moved over to America when without anything, and I didn't know anything about this country, neither did my parents. But I think it was the mixture of like that background and then um, like merging into American culture,
Okay.
where I think that like the strong-willed and like determination, hardworking, and like diligent part of it is definitely like Korean. But I saw that like in America, you could be independent and like you could be different and it's still okay.
Yep.
Korea is mostly Korean people there, so everybody's like pretty similar, and uniqueness. I personally don't think that is as celebrated as in America.
Okay.
So I think that kind of like helped me flourish to be okay with working hard, even if that whatever I'm working hard for isn't exactly like part of the norm. So I think it's a mixture of both.
And how did you decide that you were going to become an engineer? Did you know from early on, or?
I think I just figured I would do science. My parents, I think, assumed that I would do something science related, become a doctor or, a scientist or maybe a lawyer, one of those top that every parent wants you to become like the top three, like doctor, lawyer, whatever. I don't know what the third is, but so I think I just assumed that I liked science. And then I was a biology major initially. And I got to college and I realized I really hate school. I hate studying. And I was like,
Really?
okay, well, let's be efficient. If I'm going to go to college for 4 years, I want to do something that is going to get me like after the 4 years, if I choose not to go to grad school, which I haven't gone back yet, then I would still have a steady job. And nowadays, I feel like there's not many, with the bachelor's, it's really hard to find like a very specific career path. But engineering was one of them. So I was like, okay, well, I'm in science, but let's move over to engineering. It's more practical. And I realized that I really loved it. It was a mixture of the science and creativity that I really like love. I love arts and I love I think you know that I play piano. And so like arts and music, all that stuff is that right brain, right? And left brain is like the logical part. So I'm kind of both, and then that engineering fed both sides of my interests. And engineering at its like core is problem solving, and like I love that if there's no solution for something, you can create it, and in that way it's kind of rebellious, like, okay, well, don't tell me there is no solution, snap snap snap. I'll create one, like,
Yeah.
it wasn't something before, then I'm going to create it to make it work.
Yeah.
So engineering fit really well. And then my senior year, I did biomedical engineering, and with that, you could go a bunch of different ways. You could like do medical instrumentation, make medical devices, go to pharmaceuticals or like tissue engineering. But then my senior year of engineering school, there was every engineering degree or every engineering major needs to do like a capstone senior project. And there are two sections. One was working in a lab or lab setting and do research for a semester. The other one was working with people with disabilities or centers that have to do with disability work. And so I figured I have no idea what that is, or assistive technology is kind of the general term. I have no idea what this is, but I figured I know that research takes a long time to do. And after a semester, I was like, well, I don't know that I would get anything out of it. So I tried this other section out, and I fell in love with it. Basically, each team got to work with either a client or a center where they were given a problem. Like mine was working with a little girl who had blindness.
Wow.
And they said, okay, well, she needs to learn Braille, but she's 5 and she will not just sit and pay attention because that's how kids are, And so they were like, well, we need a fun way that we can incorporate play into her learning Braille. So that's kind of how I got started in that field and stumbled upon it. It worked out really well for me and I think a lot of rehab engineers share the same story, in that they have an engineering mind, but they hate the fact that most engineers have to like sit behind a computer and like work with a computer.
Yeah.
And I think rehab engineers are those like very like rare species where they also love people, and they love that aspect of the career. They can't like do without it. So
what's a typical day in your job, just to get us understanding what you do exactly?
Right. So I work at Michigan Medicine, which is the hospital within University of Michigan system, particularly at Mott Children's Hospital. So I work with people with physical disabilities and cognitive disabilities, any sort of disability that gets in the way of them being as independent as possible. So typical day would be that I would see patients throughout the day, and then like mixture of meetings, but particularly during the patient sessions, what I work on is using technology to help them be more independent. I think my typical example is, Stephen Hawking. He used to use his computer as a way to communicate, and towards the end of his life, he could only, I believe, move his cheek muscles, and he used a single switch to be able to write his entire, lectures and books where you're just doing single switch scanning.
Isn't that crazy?
So that a rehab engineer would be able to set that up, working with a speech pathologist and possibly occupational therapist and working as a team, but the rehab engineer does the technology part. I just look at, okay, like what can you do? And what is the goal? Is communication the goal, but you can't move anything on your body? Do you have functions in your mouth? Like, can you blow? Can you sip from a straw? And that even can be used as a way that I can get you access to whatever you want to have access to.
That's really neat. Yeah.
It's never the same, which is good because
Yeah.
I get bored easily. And so it's nice. Like every day it's a different problem that I have to solve.
But you're changing people's lives. Like that's very, do you realize that when you're working? Like it must get kind of.
I'd like to think so. But day to day, it's really, I'm focused on like that one, like more like microscopic problem. Mm-hmm. But every once in a while, like a patient will say like, thank you genuinely. And I'm like, oh, okay.
Yeah, I bet. Yeah. And what's one of the biggest challenges that you faced, like maybe in your career, let's say in your career?
As a rehab engineer, I think the biggest challenge is that a lot of people don't really know about the accessibility and the assistive technology work. When I say rehab engineer, a lot of people aren't really familiar with that term, and myself included. When I was in engineering school, I didn't know that rehab engineering was a field that existed. But it is encouraging because a lot of big companies are really focused on accessibility nowadays. Like Apple has a lot of accessibility features coming out in all of their devices. And so it is encouraging, but I think still a challenge that it's not like a forefront of a lot of like tech companies and companies like thought that accessibility should be and universal design should be like very pivotal in whatever they make. So that's the biggest challenge, in that no one really seems to know what we do, even though it's really useful. Yeah. But as an engineer in general, I think one big challenge would be that it's still a very like male heavy field.
Oh, so yeah.
Even day to day, I do run into things like where they just assume that I'm a student, or, and kind of that stigma of you may not really know what you're talking about. And it's not like blatant all the time, but I think my graduating class had maybe 2 or 3 girls in the graduating class of the biomedical engineering program. And we had about, I think 27 or 30 total graduates in that program for that year. So maybe like 10% was girls. So
do you feel you have to compensate kind of, or like speak loud, or like push a little more your?
I think so. And part of it is conscious decisions, and part of it, I think, more of like the kind of the worry and anxiety that like I may not be taken as seriously is subconscious. I think there's like this underlying like, oh, did I say that correctly? Or like, did I say that in the right tone? And that, I'm sure that is like very like deep rooted subconscious that happens. And then every once in a while, like I'll like make a conscious effort to go to a meeting and like put myself in there so that I, have like make my seat at the table, so to speak.
Yeah.
So combination of both. Yeah.
So you have to be intentional as well. What's your biggest achievement in, let's say, regardless of career, life, biggest achievement yet?
Achievement. I think starting my own company is probably like my biggest personal achievement. From the senior capstone project, the Braille toy that I created, I turned it into a company where I sell Braille educational toys.
Wow,
to,
let me know about that.
yeah.
I didn't
Link.
know.
Yeah, so it's kind of like Leapfrog, and it's compatible with Leapfrog's Bridgetronics toy.
Yep.
But I manufacture and sell Braille compatible blocks that go into the Leapfrog's toy. And so it came
Nice.
from a project to working with a company to make it commercializable. And then now I have a website where people place orders, and then it's like a factory of one, assembly line of just me working,
Yeah.
putting it all together. But still, it's registered, it's a legit company, and so even though it was a slow process and kind of a steady thing that didn't blow up, and it wasn't like a viral company or anything like that, but that wasn't really the plan. And that, like, I am proud that I went from the beginning and like made sure that the foundation for the company was set correctly, and then
Definitely.
that way that it's not going anywhere, it's not going to just crumble. But
Yeah.
like,
What's the biggest benefit of that tool that you have, like
so
for a child?
it's got the Braille texture on it. So when you work with when you put it in the Leapfrog Bridgetronics toy, you place a block into the toy and you press it and it sings you the alphabet song. But compared to the Leapfrog's blocks, it has the Braille texture on top of that texture. So obviously Leapfrog's not a Braille toy. So I created blocks that can go into the Leapfrog
Okay.
toy things to you. So working with that, I think the Leapfrog toy is about $20, and just purchasing my blocks would make it possible for somebody to learn Braille in like a fun and engaging way. And
Yeah.
I still can't believe it, but I believe there's no other toy that is electronic and sing-songy and engaging and fun for that demographic. So young kids who are just learning elementary Braille, ABCs, but maybe kids that are already blind or will be like completely blind by whatever age. And so I wish that there were more toys out there, and I'm shocked that of all the big companies that are out there that I'm just an engineer at Michigan, just me and company of one
Yeah. I'm
would be the
surprised.
only
Yeah.
company that would be producing it. And honestly, the goal would be that more people know the need for that, and then maybe like a big company like Leapfrog would just take it on and produce more toys that are accessible for kids with disabilities.
Do you have other ideas for next
Um,
games, or do you want
couple,
to, or do you, yeah?
a couple, and really it's based off of some of the other Leapfrog toys. So I see some of the spin toys that like spin around and like stop at a certain letter, and I had some ideas of maybe like creating overlays that have Braille texture. And I like the idea of working with toys that are already out there. So then as a small company, as a starting off company, I don't have to foot the bill of the big electronic portion of the toy.
Yeah.
When like that just works by itself, with just a little bit of like change and then like an addition on top of it, like an adapter basically, you're making it accessible and you're allowing the kids to learn something that you have to be able to do with the original toy.
That's amazing, Seong-Hee. I had no idea you were doing that. So kudos to you. It's very, very cool. And you, like I mentioned before, you're a recent official US citizen. How has that shaped your life now or changed your life?
Oh, it's definitely a sigh of relief. Yeah, for sure. And I guess now that it's happened, it doesn't feel much different. But every time I look back and like all the anxiety that my family felt all the years that we were waiting for a green card, I think it took us 11 years to get a green card, and being denied a couple times and then like trying again another way. And so it's been a long road. And during that time, literally every uniformed person that we've walked past, my mom would be so anxious and like nervous that, oh my God, someone's gonna, give us a hard time. And for the longest time, my mom was the only one who had a social security number. And in America, like social security number is like gold. Like without it, you can't do anything. You can't sign up for a credit card. You can't buy anything. You can't get credit and all that stuff. So I feel like we were always on edge. Like someone's gonna like kick us out.
Yeah.
And
walking on eggs.
Yeah, for sure. And after the green card, it got a little better, but still in the last couple of years with the recent like political climate, there was some concerns even for green card holders that they may be sent back to their home country. And so for someone like me who grew up in America since 9, I do consider Korea still my like homeland, but I don't know what I would do if I were to go back and try to find a job, you know?
Well, you were raised here. I mean, this is what you know.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
And my education's here, and my network, you know, and my professional and personal network is here. And so that would be devastating to have to like be told also. Like if I chose to go back to Korea and like raise a family and that's my choice, like that would be different than like just out of nowhere uproot, hey, like you gotta go.
You gotta go. That would be horrible.
Right. So to have the citizenship, it definitely is a sigh of relief. And before I didn't think that like being able to vote would be a big deal. And in grade school, I was like, okay, well, like green card's good enough. I can do everything. Two big things that you can't do without your citizenship would be to vote and then to get a government clearance. So if you were to work for the government, for the U.S. government, I think some of the jobs you can't get if you're not a citizen. Also, you wouldn't be able to get the like security clearance if you're not a citizen.
Oh, okay.
And initially, you know, growing up in grade school, you don't think it's really a huge deal. And then once I got to college, I was like, oh, like it's a big difference. So I applied for a couple of years ago and then finally got it. So it's a big sigh of relief.
Yeah, big sigh of relief. Well, congratulations again. Yeah. What do you strongly believe in your core values as a person?
Core values definitely would be based on the first thing that comes to mind is my Christian faith, and that my relationship with Christ and God would be like where all of my core values come from. And especially if it aligns with like also my cultural core values of like honoring your parents or how I view relationships or like the decisions I make, what is good or bad. I think in the years that I've spent in Michigan, so I moved over to St. Louis when I moved from Korea, lived there for about 3 years, spent my grade school years, middle school and high school in Maryland. A lot of my like friends are in Maryland, but when I got the Michigan medicine job 6 years ago, I moved out to Michigan. And I think that's actually when I started to really grow in my Christian faith. When I was out here. And I feel like that's really my like big girl adulthood started, being out in Michigan and like having this job and like my career really like getting rooted and then like taking shape into what it's going to be. I think that's when I really started to like, my faith started growing. And so it aligned with some of the stuff that I was striving for, like to be a better person or like to be a good global citizen, you know, be good to other people, and the values of family and values of relationships and like your friend network, all that stuff, like it really aligns well with what I've grown, like the things that have grown in my faith. So I think
some current fears or right now in your life where you are?
Current fears. Like this is an impromptu answer because I was thinking about that too. I'm like, should I like, I don't want to, you know, fake the fears, but this just popped in my mind. I think that my current like personal biggest fear would be that stagnation.
Oh, that's a good one.
You know, I feel like I'm not like super young. You know, I'm not a newly adult. Like I didn't just become 20 or, you know, 21. But I also am not like in my middle ages. It just turned 31 in March. And so I feel like I'm in that stage where I'm like, I feel like I want to continue to grow at a like pretty fast pace, but I'm getting to like a very like more of a stable position in my life in general. It's not like I'm like starting college. So I think kind of that stagnation is probably my biggest fear, in that what if like 10 years down the line and 20 years down the line, I would have wished that 10 years before that I would have like done something. And so I feel like I still have the time to make a change in my life or like grow, you know, exponentially. This would be the time. So like, I guess that would be my personal biggest fear.
That's a good one. I relate to that because I think that's probably one of my top 3 fears as well. Yeah. The stagnation. Right. I'm a person that keeps learning and that wants to keep learning, and it's always like new projects, but I don't know. I fear being stuck in time and later on regretting that I haven't done, you know,
But you also feel like, I feel like the idea that we are still young is kind of crippling, because you feel like, well, but also I'm still kind of young. Like I still have time still. Yeah. And being motivated is so hard. So I guess like I would encourage you to feel encouraged that we're all, I feel like this age, this early 30s or like late 20s is that stage where you feel like either you should have been further, but also you have some time to still be young, and that kind of mixture of complex emotions.
Definitely, it's never too late. It's not too late.
Right.
We're still.
And then you hear those stories of like people who are like, oh, it's never too late. The creators of KFC, he started when he was 70 or something like that, where you're like, okay, well maybe I can just like, take a nap right now, or like not do anything today and like not be productive. Like I got time. I'm not 70. And so like you don't want to fall into that trap of not doing anything, but then also the anxiety of like, oh, I should be doing more is also bad. So like
I should have more money in the bank. I should have more of this. I should be, in a different position at work, whatever it is. Yeah. Totally agree.
So you got to find the balance.
Mm-hmm. And what's your rock in life? What keeps you going?
Definitely Christ. I think that in the moments that I have especially in the last like 6-7 years, were like really, really dark moments where I felt like I couldn't do it on my own, like somehow like it all works out. Christ, for sure, my relationship, like where solutions, I'd like to think that I have a very creative problem solving mind, but there have been moments where I'm like, I don't know, like I have no answers for this, like this position I'm in. When I moved out to Michigan, I found this job after being let go of one engineering position where my entire life I just worked hard and I was a good student. I got good grades. I got into a good college and graduated with an engineering degree. And really, I think that was like my first failure that I saw. No, in hindsight, it really was the best thing that ever happened, because I was only at that job because I wanted to get my parents their house. I was the one with the good credit and good like American job. And it was a family goal to buy a house. And I wasn't going to leave that job, but I was literally crying every single day at work.
Wow.
I was miserable. I hated that job.
Position to be in.
And I was like, but I'm not quitting. The job didn't pay very well, even for an engineering position. And every day I remember like going into the bathroom of the work and crying. And so clearly I was not, happy. I was miserable, but I wasn't leaving. And literally, I feel like the only thing that would have made me leave was to get let go. And I feel like it was just like divine intervention. Like, it's like, you got to get out, and I'm going to make you get out because they're going to tell you, that you can't stay. So in that moment where I'm like, but if I work hard, I can do anything. Like, it may take longer, but all the other things that I just stayed up longer to study harder. Or like, if I failed the exam, then like, I might have like the next one, I, studied more and harder and read more times the book and got it done. So that was like a reality check, but that got me out to Michigan. And I feel like all of that, like that moment where I felt like I couldn't fix the situation, like God kind of swooped me in and let me kind of let go of the control. And so definitely I know those moments where I feel like this is not like, you're gonna have to come in and fix this because I can't do it. So that would be like my one rock. And then kind of the ancillary would be definitely my family. Family is kind of the beginning and the end of my like here life, like my personal, like human life of, and that includes my new husband too.
Congratulations on the wedding.
Thank you. Yeah.
How recent is it actually?
March, so we're just past 6 months. We're almost at 7 months now that I'm counting. 4 days till 7 months. Yeah, wow. So very recent. And in the time of COVID and quarantine, it's definitely been a big learning curve. But I think that just the virtue of them being next to me every single day and like they become your rock, and inevitably they start to know you best. So
yeah. And Seong-Hee, what's a last message you'd like to share to our viewers? Could be anything, your motto, your what you live by?
I think, are the viewers mostly like, is it just kind of mix of everybody?
Yeah, yeah, a lot of women, but yeah.
I think my last message would be like, my last message would be to encourage people, let's be nicer to each other, like ourselves. Let's be nicer to ourselves and have more
Yes.
grace and patience for ourselves would be what I'm also struggling with, and challenging myself to be nicer to me
Mhm.
and like give myself more time, give myself more grace and mercy, and stop being so hard on me.
Definitely.
Kind of what I'm
Yeah.
telling me. So I guess I think that it would be helpful. Hopefully, it'll be helpful for someone else too.
Yeah, yeah, it definitely will. The negative talk, the negative thoughts need to clear
Mhm.
and be conscious of them, because everybody has them, but it's the,
Right.
you know, do we believe in them? No, then, you know, okay, let it move
Yeah.
on.
Right. Like you
Yeah.
would not say that to your best friend, or if you would not say that to like your mom or your sister or your siblings, then if it's of no benefit.
I agree. Well, Seong-Hee, I mean,